The Bureau of Customs has a new chief and a new mandate to collect a record 1.1 trillion pesos in 2026. But with imports still weak, tariffs lower, and business trust on the line, it's a high bar. Commissioner Ariel Nepomuceno is promising digital reforms and stronger enforcement. But the private sector is not just about collection, it's about credibility. Joining us now, Apa Ongpin, the Executive Director of the Makati Business Club, a leading voice on good governance and competitiveness. Hi, Apa. Thank you for joining us again.
Well, thanks for having me.
Okay, always good to hear from you. We've got so many topics to cover apart from this BOC, so let's get straight to it. Let's start with a headline figure, the BOC's fresh record 1.1 trillion revenue target for 2026. You know, they don't just pull these numbers out of thin air. They're professionals. But in your opinion, do you think, this is a realistic goal or a bit of a fiscal stretch?
If they came up with a number, then they must think it's a realistic goal. So I would have to say, okay, you're the guys who know what you can do. I'm going to consider this a realistic goal. I know it's a very high number. Mm-hmm. And
record.
There's a lot of assumptions there, right?
Yeah.
That the economy is going to have to grow.
That's right.
People are therefore going to have to import more taxable goods.
Yeah, that's the next big question. How does customs get there? And what are the assumptions, the economic assumptions in place for us to hit 1.1 trillion?
One of the sort of low-hanging fruits, in a sense, is to convert smuggling into government revenue. That's the obvious avenue. Now, let's be frank. There is smuggling going on. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is in agricultural goods, mm-hmm. huge volumes, and so on. And if customs was able to collect duties and taxes on those goods instead of getting the money as corruption revenue, mm-hmm. That would really help meeting the target.
Yeah, touching on that, the top complaints of members of the Makati Business Club when it comes to the Bureau of Customs, of course, smuggling is right up there. But what are the other biggest concerns?
When we interface with the government, we don't like to just complain, okay? We don't want to go up to the Customs Commissioner and the Secretary of Finance and so on and say, hey, puro smuggling, fix it. No?
Yeah.
What we want to do is propose solutions, We want to say, look, how can we support you guys, right, mm-hmm. in this effort? And one of the things that we want to do is enable digitalization. Digitalization is a really good way of what do you call this? It encourages transparency, which therefore makes corruption harder to execute, mm-hmm. right? Simple thing, right? For decades, the business sector has been trying to get customs to simply publish a rate schedule. So if you're going to import X, the rate schedule on this is Y, right? Mm-hmm. They haven't done it, right? But if you have that kind of transparency, right, you're going to import this and the rate schedule is that, it's very difficult to have some kind of mm-hmm. corruption.
What about extortion? Is that still a problem that your members encounter?
Yeah, so the problem both with the BIR and the BOC. No, I actually personally have a live case with the ARTA against people in the Bureau of Customs mm-hmm. Who extorted
What's the modus?
My company at the time.
What's the modus, Apa? We hear about a lot of things. People report on a lot of things. One of them is that they give a high figure
Okay,
Can you talk to us about
the
that?
assessments.
Yeah, the assessments.
And this happens a lot to foreign companies operating in the Philippines. So when we talk with our embassy partners and so on and so forth, they're saying, "Oh man, this is really a problem." So let's say a company is making 100 million pesos EBITDA in a year. No, the customs people will come around and give them a plainly absurd assessment, like 500 million.
In hopes for
tax
settlement?
assessment. Yeah. And they say, okay, let's negotiate. Diba?
Okay.
And that's sort of the standard modus for extortion with the BIR. No?
Okay.
And, there are companies out there, like the fuel companies, grabe. They've been paying through the nose, no? These very, very high assessments. And then they sue the government after, saying that, hey, this assessment is unfair. And we know that there's a few fuel companies out there in the big five or whatever who have tens of billions of pesos in tax refunds because nga of these ridiculous assessments. No? And the government is saying we don't have money to give you this tax refund. It's already been ruled in court.
Okay. What's the workaround moving forward? How will the push to go digital help eradicate these problems?
Well, it won't eradicate everything, but for many of the smaller importers, it will just make extortion and corruption much, much harder, right? In the case of, in the case of the fuel guys, yeah, I mean, if you could have automatic computation, then you wouldn't have these ridiculous assessments.
Absolutely. Still on the customs front, Marcos removed 6 top officials from the Bureau of Customs, including the former commissioner, appointing Ariel Nepomuceno to lead the agency. Talk to us about the reputation of this newly appointed official, and where do you think that's going to take us?
We've discussed him in Makati Business Club, and quite a few members are familiar with him. Apparently,
he came from the private sector.
Came from the private sector. He has a very good reputation. Apparently, he's very bright. He's very up to technology, up to date with technology, and he has great integrity. So we have high hopes for this guy, Mr. Nepomuceno.
Yeah, high hopes for him because he's got a really high target. Speaking of that high target, if that 1.1 trillion peso target for 2026 isn't hit, what are the risks there? I mean, our debt load, it's already ballooned to nearly 17 trillion as of May. It's a big problem for the president and for the economic cluster. What are your thoughts about this, Apa?
Yeah, it varies whether they consider it a problem or not. During Pinoy, they considered that a problem, and Pinoy
looked to pay it down.
Moved to pay down a lot of debt, and in doing so, raised the company's credit rating a great deal, which made us a much more attractive destination for foreign direct investment. Okay, then during Duterte, the government was like, borrow, sige. So the debt went really, really high up. They were capitalizing, obviously, on the good credit rating.
Yeah, absolutely.
That,
they benefited from that.
And this government naman, they don't seem alarmed by the high debt level, but they are doing measures to make sure that we can pay this stuff down.
What do you think is a healthy attitude for national debt?
Well, that's a judgment call. I mean, obviously, as a businessman, businessmen like Pinoy's attitude, right?
Pare that down.
Yeah, let's handle it. Let's pay off as much as we can and improve our credit rating because it makes us a more attractive destination.
Great. Looking ahead, what are the key performance signals, KPIs, MBC and the business community are watching now, whether to see whether custom is truly reforming or just rebranding?
Well, it's a wait and see thing on our behalf. we are planning to engage with the government on this, precisely to discuss, how we can support and how we can have solutions to these problems. No? But this is a really age-old problem, and they need to have the revenue. They need to come up with this revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. BIR and customs are really the backbone of the government when it comes to revenue collection.
Yeah.
Okay, on another topic, June inflation hit 1.4%. This is below last year's 3.7%. Signals, possibly more rate cuts. The BSP says maybe even 2 more rate cuts. What does this say, this very tame inflation rate, especially after elections? Right?
Yeah.
What does this very tame inflation rate at 1.4% say about the government's economic cluster and how they're handling things?
I have to be, objectively, I think this is an excellent performance by the economic cluster. Inflation is particularly difficult to tame after an election because all sorts of money enters the system, right?
Yeah, a lot.
They did it. They were able to control the price of rice in particular. They were able to lower food prices in other sectors and basic goods. And this is a huge effort. This is not just,
It's not just lip service.
Not just lip service.
Yeah.
It's action. And hats off to them.
Okay.
We really think this is the central job of these guys because inflation really hits the poor. And controlling inflation is much, much better than raising wages.
Yeah, and with all the global headwinds, right, it puts us in a better position to weather all of those storms. Speaking of those global headwinds, the Trump administration's big, beautiful bill, implications on capital flows, risk appetite, global interest rates, and of course the impact on the Philippines in terms of the peso, foreign direct inflows. What are your thoughts on how this might hit us?
Well, in the past, we've said that the whole tariff thing, the Trump tariff thing, doesn't really affect the Philippines as much because we're not manufacturing so much. We're a services economy. Of course, the Trump administration wants to tax BPOs.
Yeah.
No?
And OFW remittances.
OFW remittances. So that will affect us a little bit. No? But it's not as bad as, let's say, China or Vietnam. Vietnam made a deal.
Yes, that's
because
right.
They're really dependent on manufacturing.
Yeah, they've said it already at 20%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's their, that's their lifeblood, is exporting goods to the U.S.
So for us, at 17%, which would be the worst case scenario, what impact do you think that's going to have on our economy?
Well, hard for me to speak as an economist, but...
just from your lens as the executive director of the Makati Business Club.
I think it will not have a catastrophic or major impact on our economy.
Good to hear.
And in any case, don't forget that the courts have ruled that Trump may not set tariffs.
Yeah.
He may not, because it is not an emergency situation as he describes. So he's going to have to get over that legal hurdle if he wants this thing to happen.
Yeah, and everybody's just looking for more clarity so that they can make decisions based on what's really going to happen. I guess just wait and see for us. On the last front, I wanted to ask you, the Department of Finance wants to slap taxes on online gambling, digital betting platforms. What are your thoughts on this?
There's already a flat tax on gambling. It's, I believe, 20%, no? That the government imposed from the very, very beginning. I don't know if the legislature would countenance more additional taxes on gambling. it's a sector that, you know, that brings a lot of revenue to the government already. But, you know, it's taxed very high. 20% is, you know, it's, I mean, the winners pay 20%.
Okay. Another question. There's a call for a total ban on government officials participating in any form of online or offline gambling. How easy would this be to enforce? And beyond their participation, what about ownership of gambling or investing in gambling-oriented businesses? I mean, if they can't be seen in a casino, but they can own one, it's kind of sends a different message, right?
There is a ban, okay? There's an existing ban that all government employees and officials are not allowed to gamble, period, right? Well, there are, I guess, some exceptions. They're allowed to buy sweepstakes tickets, lotto from the PCSO, whatever. But in public gambling establishments or something, it is no secret to many of us that a lot of gambling operations are owned by government officials, particularly LGU officials. No? And I'm talking about legal gambling. Legal gambling. So I'm not going to name names or anything like that.
We don't need to. Let's talk big picture. But what does this say about us and what needs to change on this front?
Well, I don't know about what needs to change, and it's not something that we've discussed at Makati Business Club. But we do recognize that gaming, as they like to call it, is a significant source of revenue for government. And, you know, if they're going to change policy on that, you know, good on them. We'll support it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Apa Ongpin, the Executive Director of the Makati Business Club.